Welcome to Longhorn Weekly with Coach Sark, presented by the Texas Lottery.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to a brand new season of Longhorn Weekly as we come your way from Pluckers, the West Campus location. Like I say, it's a brand new season. I'm not so brand new, been around a while. My name is Craig Way. However, please welcome the head football coach of the University of Texas, Steve Sarkisian. Which we learned right out of the gate, just call you Coach Sark, right?
That's right. That's a lot easier.
Yeah. How you been? I know it's been a busy time.
I've been great. It's just exciting for football season. You know, you take a job, and I was kind of reflecting on it with the team a little bit about, you know, you get a new coach and you go through the process of hiring a staff, and you go through the off-season conditioning, and not to mention we were still going through COVID, and then here comes the ice storm, and then so on and so forth, and you just kind of work your way through it all, and you get your way to training camp, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh, wow, we're in game week, and here it is, and it's exciting. I'm excited for our players. I was telling them that today after practice that, you know, this is a unique opportunity to do something special, to have an amazing experience for them in their lives and in memory for them that we want to make sure we put our best foot forward Saturday.
You know, normally with the way we'll do the program, we start off and we talk about a lot of things about the team in the first few segments, and then we work in a couple of questions from fans here in the audience. But I want to jump right to one because it just touched on something you just talked about, and this is from Cindy, who's a very loyal fan, who said, you came in during the middle of COVID, and what was the most challenging thing you have found, and what's been the most enjoyable activity so far that you've been able to discover in being in the Longhorn family?
You know, one of the more difficult things, when you think about it, you know, our team, I didn't recruit our team. And a couple of the guys I had recruited, but clearly they chose to come to Texas. And when I first got hired, all the way through, I never got a chance to meet parents. And, you know, we had, I think, upwards to 15 kids come mid-year, show up on our campus, and I never got to meet their parents, and it was their first day at school. And so that was probably one of the more challenging things, was really getting to know our players and getting to know their backgrounds and where they came from. And, you know, we finally got a chance in training camp to do kind of a player-parent barbecue after our first scrimmage and get around them. That was probably the biggest challenge of it all, was just really getting to know our players and how we were going to do that through this process. And you know, probably the most exciting thing for me has been now moving into the south end zone. And you know, when we first got in, we were in the north end zone, and we were up on the 7th floor, and that was for months of being in the old academic compliance area and meeting with the team on the 8th floor, and now to have our own space, that's been a really exciting kind of feature and part of this now the last week and a half.
I remember when you first came in, you said, we're not in the south end zone yet. They're working on that. You said, we're in the north end zone right now. You said, north end zone's okay, but we're looking forward to getting into the south end zone. And I'm sure the players were as well, getting into their space. And I know there's still some pardon our dust and still a few tweaks going on to get it completely finished.
No, there is, but you think about the players that, you know, a lot of these guys, they haven't even had a chance to experience their own locker room. You know, we've been in the visitors' locker room, which they were last season, and going through this process. So now to have their own space, to have actually a player lounge where they go, to have their weight room, their training room, their equipment room, all those things from a functionality standpoint is big. But two, I think from an appreciation standpoint from our players. You know, when you don't have something and then you get it, I think there's a level of appreciation, and obviously it's extremely well built. It's a wonderful facility. So all in all, I think our players are very appreciative, but for us from a functionality standpoint, it's huge.
You've been asked this a variety of ways in a variety of gatherings on Zoom, at the first press conference of the season, things about, has anything really surprised you? And I think in the larger context, a lot of the people who were asking that were looking for some comparison contrast with your time at USC or your time at Washington or your time on Coach Saban's staff at Alabama, that sort of thing. And you've mentioned the surprises, and one that's probably because you've been down this road before. You've seen a lot of the things that you've encountered.
Yeah, I think nothing necessarily surprised me anymore. You know, it's like my third time being a head coach at obviously great universities. worked at another great university as an assistant. So nothing really surprised me. I think the biggest thing now is having an idea of where the kind of pitfalls are, and then recognizing it, and rather than stepping on it, or rather than making that be the center of my focus, it's more of, okay, let's go this direction, point that out, we need to get that fixed, but we need to keep moving in a positive direction. So probably more than anything, it's just been my mindset and kind of my vision of where we're trying to get to, and not getting caught up and tripped up on some of the things that have been in front of us. And I think our team has embraced that, and that's a really cool trait to have, because no football game is perfect, right? Adversity comes, how we respond to it is what's going to be critical. Saturday is going to be no different, but I think we can kind of create that in life. And this project of moving into the south end zone, or having the ice storm come up, and different things that we've been presented with, and not stepping on those landmines, but recognizing them, pointing them out, we need to get that detonated, but we need to keep moving forward, has been something we've tried to do.
I remember asking you right after the news conference about job one, what becomes job one after getting settled in it, and we talked about a staff, and you said that's going to be very important, is to be able to get a staff that's not only good, but one that's cohesive, that can work together, that understands one another, and that you all can be a unit, a good working unit. And you've drawn from a variety of areas there. So I take it you've been pleased with how your staff has come together, and we'll get into some specifics on those guys, but how they've come together to create the type of staff you want.
We've been really lucky. I think, one, we've identified great men. I think that we've identified really good developers of talent. It's easy to go hire a guy who's just at the best school and pay him a bunch of money and bring him because they've played well. Well, maybe they already had great players. Maybe that they weren't developed. So we try to identify guys that have done it historically throughout their career, whether they were at FCS schools, smaller 1A schools, or even the elite 1A schools and or the NFL, that have developed players. And then one of the cool things I think we did with the staff when we got them hired, I put them all in one house. And they really lived together for upwards of almost 2 months. And so it was a chance for them to really connect, get to know one another, what pushes each other's buttons, whether it's Bo Davis and Kyle Flood talking O-line, D-line play, or recruiting. I mean, there were so many aspects that came together, and getting to know each other's families. You're talking on FaceTime, meet my daughter, things like that I think allowed the staff to come together really quickly.
Did you have any one of those guys while they were in the house together that was like the best cook out of the group, or the best?
We've got a young coach on staff who's an analyst that he's kind of Chef Boyardee. I mean, he can do it. He's a crowd pleaser, I call him, Corday Hankton. So he's good on the grill. He's done crawfish boils. He's done them all. So we're lucky. He's from New Orleans, so he's got that gift of making great food and putting a smile on people's faces. That's for sure.
You participated in a Division I coaches panel that I was blessed to have the opportunity to moderate back in July at the Texas High School Coaches Association's annual coaching school and convention. And at that time, you spoke eloquently about how important it was, not only for you and for your staff, but for college coaches in this state overall, to be connected with the high school coaches. I know that means an awful lot to you.
It's a big deal to me. I'm probably a little bit old school when it comes to recruiting. I believe in the high school coaches. I believe in the connection with the high school coaches and developing those relationships. And that was an odd challenge too with COVID, because we couldn't go out and recruit. And so I tried to make it a point to call, 2 to 4 coaches a day and make that connection. And over time, that number grew, right, of guys I was connecting with. But I do think that's a big deal. I think these guys are so vitally important in their own development of their players, which ultimately they're the ones we're recruiting, and understanding their approach to it all. So that connection was a big deal to me. And we've got a straight line recruiting, mantra here in the state of Texas that, we value. And I know every other school in state values. And I just wanted to make it a point to them that, hey, when the schools from out of state come to recruit our kids, which, hey, when you've got over 400 kids in the state of Texas going to play college football, we all can't take them all. We recognize they're going to go to other schools. But let's just make sure when those other schools come into our state to recruit our kids, that they adhere to the straight line recruiting, that they involve the high school coaches. And if they're not, that puts a lot of pressure on the high school coach, but they essentially need to get them to adhere to the same standards that we're all living by and abiding by. And I felt like that was really important because the high school coach is an integral part to what we do. And if we value them, I just want to make sure everybody else is valuing them.
Yeah, for folks who don't know the definition, the straight line of recruiting is working through the coaches, not through the outside influences of a student athlete.
That's right. And hey, I get it. Everybody's got people that they rely on in making their decisions, whether they're 7-on-7 coaches, trainers, uncles, dads, everybody's got that, right? But at the end of the day, the one guy he sees every day is that high school coach, and he's been through the fires with him. So we rely on him, but I think there is a mechanism here to trust the high school coach that he can be the focal point in the recruiting process of allowing a kid not to get overwhelmed and that make sure everything's done the right way.
I want to remind Longhorn fans that you can register free at texassports.com/Texas Farm Bureau for your chance to win tickets to home games all season and be entered to win a grand prize trip for two to the Longhorns Bowl game courtesy of Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. That's texassports.com/Texas Farm Bureau. Good luck. Coming up, we'll get into some other topics. We'll talk about Coach Sark's first group of Texas Longhorn players here. We're at Pluckers, the West Campus location here in Austin, presented by the Texas Lottery and viewable by those who be watching on Longhorn Network and heard all across the state of Texas and the great Southwest on the Longhorn Radio Network from Learfield.
Longhorn Weekly with Coach Sark is presented by the Texas Lottery, celebrating 30 years of winning. Play today. And in part by Pluckers Wing Bar. If you don't like our wings, we'll give you the bird.
Back here on Longhorn Weekly with Longhorns head Coach Sark, here from Pluckers, the West Campus location, and presented by the Texas Lottery. Okay, we've talked a little bit about your staff, but let's talk a little bit about your team. Like you said, it was going to be a challenge to kind of get to know them early on with the the restrictions and the transition that was going on as well. I asked you about job one, about building the staff. When it got to your players and you knew spring practice was coming up, you were also folding in recruiting and all of this. What became the more important elements for you as you got to know your team and got them through spring drills?
Well, I think, a couple of things are, one, a style of play, right? How do we want to play the game? It's not necessarily the X's and O's, right? I mean, we've got, offense, defense, special teams, but it's more about the mentality, the style of play, the mental toughness needed to persevere, the ability to overcome the adversity. And so we had to instill those things kind of through the winter conditioning program. And in the interim, finding out the skill set of the guys to at least get an idea of where they could go, who could do what, so that we start to build the X's and O's based around our team. I think one thing that our staff has done a really good job of, yes, we've all got systems that we've ran previously, but I don't think we've been stubborn at all to say, hey, we're running this system or these plays, hell or high water. We had to fit our schemes to our players, and the only way you can do that is to learn our players. And I think our guys have done a really good job of that up until this point.
And that brings to mind a different type of question. The mere fact that you're looking at guys and trying to get a vision for how they fit best and execute best in your system when what you're seeing on tape, on video, is out of a different system or could be different elements of that. So how challenging was that for you and for your staff to look at guys, say, let's start on the defensive side. Let's say with Coach Kwiatkowski and the defensive staff, to look at a guy like a DeMarvion Overshone, or to look at a Josh Thompson or somebody on defense and say, okay, this is how he was operating this. How does he fit best and do what we need him to do in our system?
Yeah, we were looking more at the skill set. It wasn't necessarily how he played certain plays and did different things, because we don't know exactly what he was getting coached to do or what the scheme was asking him to do. So we were just trying to find the skill set, right? We're trying to find height, weight, speed, level of physicality, level of almost endurance, if that makes sense. How does he play after contact, before contact? How does he plays after extended contact, and what does all that look like? Because that's the game of football, right? I mean, it's a physical sport. It can be taxing, not only physically, it can be taxing mentally. So those were the kinds of things we were trying to identify. Not so much how they played within the scheme, but the skill set of what they had off of the tape that they had.
Was there someone, and you don't necessarily have to single out anyone, but if you do want to, that's fine. Was there someone when you looked at it on tape early on, defense or offense, and said, yeah, that's what we're looking for there?
That's hard to tell, and that probably wouldn't be fair to everybody, because there's been guys that they may not have even been a starter or in the two deep that has risen based off of our own evaluation, not predicated off of what was done before. And there may be some guys on our team right now that may not be as happy with where they are on the depth chart based off of what they did before. But that's why when I came in, I said it's going to be a clean slate for everybody in our program, and that everybody's going to earn what they get, and they're not going to get judged on what may have happened before, good and or bad, and it's going to be a body of work, in our instance, almost 9 months of that body of work to get us to this point. And so I held reservations to say, yeah, this is what I thought, or this isn't what I didn't think. It was kind of a body of work that's been built over time. Every guy got a blank canvas. Every guy got to paint it in light of the work that they did, not only on the football field, in the weight room, in the classroom, in their personal life, that ultimately has given us a real kind of portrait of who they are. And then we're able to kind of put people in places and pieces in places to hopefully put a product on the field Saturday that makes everybody proud.
Did you get the sense from your guys that that they felt energized or refreshed or whatever, that they had a clean slate, that they had a blank canvas, something that they could prove to you, whether they thought they did or didn't get a fair shake before or whatever? Did you get that sense from your guys once they hit the practice field and once you were going through study through tape with them to get that they grasped that opportunity?
Well, I always joke. I think when you take a new job, I think it's pretty common for coaches probably to say, hey, everybody's getting a clean slate here, right? But I think generally you can put almost players in tiers. Tier 1 is all bought in the day you show up. They're like, whoo, clean slate, here I go. Tier 2 is kind of like in this phase of, I kind of had it pretty good. Do I want this clean slate? And Tier 3 is definitely like, I'm going to wait and see. I'm going to see if this guy is true to his word, if this staff is true to their word. So you almost can put guys in kind of tiers, if that makes sense. And then over time, I have to build the trust of the team, and our staff has to build the trust of the team, and it goes both ways. They have to earn my trust. And I think over time, more and more guys started going into Tier 1, right?
And you want them in Tier 1, but it's not realistic to think that everybody's going to be in it.
Yeah, because ultimately I don't want them, the fake Tier 1, they tell me that they are, and their actions when I see them that they are, but then when we're not looking, or they're in the locker room, they're saying something different. So ultimately, I want sincere Tier 1, players on our roster, and I think the majority of our team is there. And that's probably been, you mentioned what's excited me. That's probably been one of the biggest, and if I probably could have said that, has been the buy-in of our team. And every day it almost feels like one more. And that's not to say that, we're all rubbing necks and patting backs around here. We coach our guys hard. We hold them accountable, whether it's on the field or off the field. But I think they know where it's coming from, there's a real sense of that it's genuine. We want what's best for them. And we recognize who you are off the field is ultimately who you are on the field. And so there's a level of accountability off the field as well as on the field. But when we can give them real life instances in their own life that this is going to make you a better player, and then they see it, man, it's unbelievable how that starts to spread throughout the locker room, and the older guys starting to pull the younger guys on board of, hey, this is how we're going to do it.
Toward that end, I know this means an awful lot to you. Not just, like you said, what they're doing on the field, but off the field. And off the field, in a large measure, includes what they're doing in the classroom. And
right.
as students, I know after a practice the other day you said something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing here, is don't worry about whether the academic advisors or whatever watch it. We're watching you, meaning your coaching staff. We're going to be watching to see how you do it. And I know that means an awful lot to you.
Well, I've really kind of over time bought into this idea that if you want to be a disciplined football team on the field, you got to be a disciplined team off the field. And that's not just a team, that's the individuals that make up the team. So, you earn respect, you earn trust by, having that sense of discipline off the football field. And when you're disciplined off the football field, naturally that carries over to who you are on the field. And so if we're going to preach that as a coaching staff, we have to be part of that discipline with them. And so we check classes as a staff, with whether it's us, whether it's GAs, analysts, to help our academic staff do that. And it's not necessarily to catch our players not going to class or being late to class. I really like going and them seeing me to say, hey, coach, I'm here.
Check me out.
And what they're telling me is you can count on me. And that's really what they're telling their teammates is you can count on me. I'm an accountable individual on this team. And when you make up a team of accountable individuals, now all of a sudden you have a disciplined football team that hopefully makes really good decisions on game day as well. That here goes that punt, here comes that block, and everybody in the crowd can see it coming. This guy's about to block him in the back. And our guys make a conscious decision not to block him in the back, to preserve that 15 yards to give us better field position.
We're going to talk some more about some of those guys coming up as we continue with Longhorn Weekly here with Coach Sark from Pluckers, the West Campus location, presented by the Texas Lottery, and we'll continue in a moment. Ellinger off the right hash of the Colorado 8-yard line, turns, hands it to Robinson, sweeping to the left side, Bijan to the 5, down to the goal line. Robinson is in. Touchdown, Texas. Bijan Robinson turning the corner and really manages just to lean enough to get it into the corner of the end zone to get Texas on the board first. Longhorn Weekly with Coach Sark from here at Pluckers, the West Campus location. I mentioned about starting off by talking about certain players. It's probably as good a place to start as any. And talking about your running back, Bijan Robinson, there was a touchdown in the Alamo Bowl, and it gets us to a question here from Zion, who wants to know, do you think Bijan could be a Heisman candidate? Easy question, right? That's easy.
Well, let me start by saying I'm a firm believer in the individual accolades come from team success. Is Bijan talented enough to get in that discussion? I have no question about it in my mind. But for him to get into that discussion, we have to have team success, and that'd be no different than the Outland, the Thorpe, the Unitas. I mean, all the national awards that come up. When you look at it at the end of the year, generally it's the guys that are on teams that play well. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately, if we want to have guys have individual accolades and things, we need to play well as a team. I will say this about Bijan. I had recruited him in Alabama, and I loved him, and I was swinging like crazy, and I kept thinking to myself, man, we just lost him. We didn't get him. And you lose sight of a guy and he moves on, he goes somewhere else, and then you get here, and I had never met Stan Drayton. I had never coached with Stan Drayton. I didn't know Stan Drayton, and it took one conversation with Stan Drayton for me to go, now I get it. He's a leader of men. He's a great human. He teaches these guys it's not just football, it's who you are in life. And then you get to meet Bijan out of the recruiting element, and you go, this guy's a better human being than he is a football player. And he's a really good football player, but he's a better person. You put those two together, now I know why he came to the University of Texas. And shoot, I'm lucky that I get to coach him now. So he's a wonderful person. He's a great player, and looking forward to him having a tremendous year.
He's part of a really talented and deep running back room that you have there, and you've been involved with some extraordinary offenses in your time. But in Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson and Keelan Robinson who transferred in, and your freshman Jonathan Brooks, you feel like you've got about as deep and talented a running back room as just about any you've been around?
I really do. I think probably the best one I ever had and been part of was when, obviously in '05, having Reggie Bush and Lendell White, and that still wasn't good enough to beat Texas in that night. But that was probably that room of what it ended up being with those two guys was tremendous. I don't know if I've had one this deep. Obviously, it needs to play out, but I think an unsung hero in all of this is Roschon Johnson. I mean, this guy averaged over 5 yards a carry last year, 500 yards to go along with what Bijan is, and then we get the influx of a Keelan Robinson who knows our system, has just stepped right in, and is a very versatile player for us. And then again, Jonathan Brooks, a kid that I had not recruited, and then didn't really get to know the process of it all because of COVID. He's been an unbelievably pleasant surprise. So put those four guys in one room, it's a real luxury for us going into the season.
In the case of Jonathan, it's a guy that you not only had not gotten to know and didn't recruit, it's a guy that you had no Texas tape on, so to speak, since he was a true freshman coming in, although anybody who saw his stuff at Hallettsville knew how special he could be.
Well, I tried to do that with all the kids that were already signed. I mean, you got to remember, all those kids that signed in December, I inherited, so I had to go back and watch a lot of the tape on them just to get a sense and a feel for them. And, I think in the end, we're lucky to have Jonathan Brooks, and we're lucky kind of it occurred in a COVID year, because guys couldn't go out and recruit, because I think if people went and saw him in person, he'd probably be a lot more highly recruited young man. Not to say he still wouldn't have come to Texas, but we kind of hit a home run on this one, getting him as a true freshman.
We'll talk more about the Longhorn offense as well as the Longhorn defense as well. I want to remind Longhorn fans to support the Longhorns come Texas OU weekend starting Friday, October 8th at the 33rd Annual Get Teed Off at OU Golf Tournament, to the Bash Before the Clash and the tailgate at the fairgrounds. Round up your Longhorn friends and don't miss out. Go to DallasTexasAccess.org for more information. Longhorn Weekly with head coach Steve Sarkisian from the Pluckers West Campus location and presented by the Texas Lottery continue here on the Longhorn Radio Network from Learfield.
Hey Coach, which position group have you seen the most growth in?
We thank you for that question from the team at Academy Sports and Outdoors. Is there a specific position group where you have seen more growth than, say, in another position area?
I feel like I'm going to leave somebody out here if I go too far. I think it's been pretty clear. We've got a pretty good defensive front, and I was thinking about it today. I was talking to another coach on staff. You look at our starting front four on defense, and then you look at the next four that could go in. It's almost 1A, 1B. When you start talking, Ray Thornton, Coburn, Ojimo, Jacoby Jones, and then you back that up with Ovi, Sweat, Vernon Broughton, Alfred Collins. That's a pretty good two deep. And so I know that's probably not answering the question, but I love that group and what it brings in our ability up front to do it. I would say on the flip side, probably the offensive line, because they had to go against those guys every day, and to watch their growth and development from spring ball through summer and what Torrey Beckton's done in the weight room with them, and then throughout training camp. I like that group of where they're at and their cohesiveness. I think Kyle Flood's done a great job with those guys. So probably the growth, maybe those guys, and just our style of play, because it's a little different than what it was before.
True enough. Remember, fans, we thank you for that question. And Academy Sports and Outdoors is the official sporting goods and outdoor retailer of the Big 12 Conference. Since you were going to the offensive line, I want to ask you about one guy in particular. As a head coach, I know you don't have any one favorite player. You love them all. You work with them all. You go through everything that you go through. I will say personally, one of my favorites is your starting right tackle, because we've seen what Derek Kerstetter has been through. We've seen how hard he's worked. We've seen him have to overcome what he's had to overcome. And I know you've also spoken highly of him, just as you've spoken highly of just about everybody on your team at one point or another. But for a guy like that to come through what he's come through, I think is pretty special.
Let me give you a quick Derek Kerstetter story. Okay, I get the job, and I believe it's the next day, or maybe 2 days later, I get a text and then a phone call from Derek Kerstetter, who I don't know Derek Kerstetter. I mean, I'm in the midst of
You don't even know the name,
a
right?
playoff run. I'm trying to figure all this stuff out, right? We're just, we're just kind of jamming through this, right? We just beat Notre Dame, and I'm like, and so he's telling me, he said, Coach, I'm a senior. I can come back for another year. I had a pretty bad ankle injury, and if you'd like for me to, I'd like to come back and give it a shot and play one more year. I don't know our roster. All I'm thinking is, hey, and as many as we can get, we'll take them. So I just kind of said, yeah, sure, sounds like a great idea. Yeah, come on, when I get there, come see me. Let's talk. So I get the job, and he comes in, and then a couple days later, Kyle Flood's coming to town. So I tell Kyle Flood, I said, hey, there's this, I think his name's Kerstetter. This kid Kerstetter, I think he might want to come back and play. Can you meet with him and find out the story? So he said, yeah. I see Flood about a day later. He said, yeah, this kid had a really bad ankle injury. I don't know if he's going to make it, but we'll have him come back. What a godsend. I mean, to have Derek Kerstetter on our offensive line, to have him on our team, and his leadership he provides, the physical and mental toughness he provides, the guidance he's provided me on just kind of how things have gone and maybe the approach to the team. He's on our leadership committee. He's our starting right tackle.
And he could play about any.
He pretty much can play any position. And if I've got an issue on the team, he's probably one of 3 to 4 guys I'm going to consult with. Hey, what should we do about this? So amazing. But it goes back to how he approached me. It was just kind of like, hey, Coach, I'm a guy on the team. I hurt my ankle. I was thinking about coming back. It wasn't, hey, I've been a starter. I've been this. I've been that. So come to find out, I think that the humility he has as a person, I think kind of just bleeds into that's the way he plays the game.
No doubt about it. All right, we've got more coming up with Coach Sark here from Pluckers, the West Campus location, when Longhorn Weekly continues in a moment. Shotgun snap back to Thompson. Casey with time going deep over the middle, and that pass is caught. Touchdown, Texas! Joshua Moore. The second time that combo has worked in as many drives. Casey Thompson, another touchdown pass. We welcome you back to Longhorn Weekly with Coach Sark from Pluckers, the West Campus location, presented by the Texas Lottery. It's another guy we're talking about, guys who have had their own journeys and the things they've gone through. Joshua Moore is another guy that falls into that category of the journey that he's had to go on. I'm
really proud of him. From the ups and downs early in his career, to even, quite frankly, the beginning of throughout spring ball with us. It was kind of this kind of tugging and pulling and back and forth. And, I had lunch with him this summer just to check in and to see where he was at, just personally. Mm-hmm. And I heard a different person talk. I heard maturity. I heard leadership. And he's just continued to build on that. And he's had a really good camp for us. And I'm excited for Josh. When you go to college, you never know how that journey's going to go. Whether you're a student athlete, you're a regular student, everybody, it's a different journey, right? And it's a next phase of your life. And his is his own story. But it's on such a great upward trend right now that I'm just excited for him for this season, just as I am all the guys. But I think he's in store for some really cool things this fall.
And I know you're gonna want to lean on him, just like your talented freshman Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington. We've talked about Marcus Washington. I know has made good progress for you as well. That you've got guys that could do it, but you're still trying to get that depth and get guys healthy there.
Without a doubt, it's never, as a coach, I'm going to say this. I'm never going to come here and tell you, Craig, that, hey, we're perfect. The roster's great. Everything. I always want more.
We always got what we need.
Yeah, I always want, another guy here, another guy there, more depth here. But this receiver group is a talented one. It's just a little inexperienced, and that's every year you're going to have that at one position or another. We've got great experience at running back. Maybe we don't have the experience we want at wide receiver. We've got good experience on the O-line. So we don't have great experience at quarterback. So there's always that give and take. But But this group, I think, is talented. We've got to do a really good job as a staff of making sure we're putting these guys in position to have success, to build that confidence that I think is needed at any position, because I think they've got a chance to do some special things, but they're going to need some confidence early on to kind of build that momentum that's needed.
You've got some talented experience at your tight end spot as well, veteran experience with Cade Brewer.
Yeah, we do. Cade he's a lot like Derek Kerstetter. He's just a steady, heady guy. He's got a really cool approach. I think he's very observant, very aware, has a really good feel for the game of whether it's a physicality, a route running, understanding of a defense. And then you throw in Jared Wiley into the mix and his skill set, and then Gunnar Helm. I think we've got a really cool three-headed monster, and we've got two young players at that position that I don't know if it's going to be Saturday, but there's going to come a point in the season where it's really going to click for them in JT Sanders and Juan Davis. So that position group is one that may not be exactly where we want it, but that's where that development piece has got to kick in for us as a staff to keep developing our players throughout the season and not just say, hey, here's our starting, our two deep, and hey, now you guys are just, we'll see you next year. We've got to keep developing those younger players because we're going to need them at some point this season.
We're 43 minutes into the show. It's okay to talk about the quarterbacks now, right?
Yeah, we can do that.
I say that because
there might not be enough time.
Right. You've been asked incessantly about your quarterbacks, the competition through the summer, the announcement that you made on Monday, all of those things. But I know it was all part of what you felt was a very productive fall camp, both for Hudson Card and Casey Thompson.
It really was. I hate to, be a broken record here, but I just didn't think coming out of spring ball that would have been fair to either guy. 15 practices, brand new system, brand new coaches to say that's our starter. So we wanted to give them the summer. And then I told myself, hey, I'm going to go into training camp and I'm going to trust my gut on this thing. There's nothing in the coaching manual that says this is the exact date you pick a starting quarterback when you're in a battle. We went into our first scrimmage. Both of them had a pretty good first week. Our first scrimmage, neither of them played great. I think they were trying a little too hard, trying to make plays rather than allow plays to come to them. They had an excellent second week. They had a really good second scrimmage. We went into the kind of that third week of camp. Both were performing well. And I just felt like the time was right for Hudson to say, you know what, I think this guy can be our starting quarterback. And that was nothing to take away from Casey Thompson. Clearly the body of work of what he did a year ago when his number was called, what he had done for us. So Casey's going to play Saturday. Exactly when and how, I don't know. There's going to be some gut for me in that one too. But we're going to give Hudson his shot to go let it rip and let him play and try to put him in position to have success, but also knowing that Casey's going to get his opportunities because, I really believe we're actually in a really good position to have two quarterbacks that can play at a high level. We're probably going to need both of them at some point this year. And there's a lot of other schools, I get it, they may have a returning starter or maybe a first-year starter that is high profile, but they don't have much behind him. And so for us to have these two guys and to know that we're going to have a plan in place to play both of them, I think is going to pay dividends for us down the road.
All right, I want to remind Longhorn fans that luck happens with the Texas Lottery. Congratulations to Bobby Lopez, who won Longhorn prizes and Texas Lottery scratch tickets. Luck could happen to you too. Play Texas Lottery today. Coming up, we'll take a look at the season opening opponent, the Ragin' Cajuns of Louisiana with Longhorn Weekly with Coach Sark from here at Pluckers, the West Campus location. Presented by the Texas Lottery. Continues on the Longhorn Network and the Longhorn Radio Network from Learfield. Back on Longhorn Weekly with Coach Sark from here at Pluckers, the West Campus location here in Austin, presented by the Texas Lottery. On the broadcast chart here, I had there's the listing of the series all time, and we just talked about it here in the restaurant. Texas and Louisiana have played one other time, 2005. Texas, that was the national championship year, and they won that season opener 60-3. And Sark, to his credit, just said, "Have a feeling that final score will not be the identical 60-3 score." I know you're impressed with this group.
This is a very good football team. This clearly isn't the same, Lafayette team from 2005. First of all, Billy Napier, their head coach, he and I worked together in 2016. He's a tremendous football coach. He's very organized. He's detailed. These guys believe in running the ball offensively, and they give you all the problems with formations and motions and shifts and tempo. They've got a really athletic quarterback in Levi Lewis, who's an experienced player, third-year starter. So they create a lot of problems offensively. Defensively, they're really sound. You look at the way they play, you don't see blown coverages, you don't see guys not being covered. And why is that? Well, they've got a veteran football team. I think they're returning 20 or 21 starters off of a team that was 10-1 last year. They went into Ames, Iowa, and beat Iowa State 34-14. So, we've got our work cut out for us. We embrace the challenge, I'll tell you that. But I also know it's going to take 4 quarters of football to come out on top of this game, and I think our guys are prepared for it.
You brought up Levi Lewis. This is a guy, obviously, who is skilled and all those things. But he's one of those veteran quarterbacks, and he's very heady and kind of knows how to get his team going.
Very savvy. When you watch these guys play, I don't say that they run Levi Lewis just to run him. I think they run him at critical moments. I think he does a really good job of utilizing his athleticism on third down and in the red area. And then when you watch their games, really from the last 2 seasons, they've been in a lot of close games in the fourth quarter, and they find a way to get a drive late in the game, and he's the guy that kind of extends the drives with his feet, out of the pocket, keeps his vision, gets a completion. So he's really the catalyst for them offensively in the critical moments. Third down, red area, fourth quarter. So, that guy, number one, we've got to make sure that we're very aware of him and how we're trying to impact him in the game.
Has some real productive receiving targets as well.
Yes, he does. And a variety, a different style, right? I think they just got a grad transfer kid who's 6'5", a big physical kid. They've got versatile guys, jet sweep guys. They've got possession type guys, and they do a good job as a staff, as we do. And you got to put players in position to have success. And so they put these guys in position to do the things that they do well, and ultimately their offense is pretty successful, most notably because they run the ball first, they force you to defend the run, and then they take advantage in the variety of ways.
All right, coming up, we got a few final notes and another question or two for Coach Sark when we continue with Longhorn Weekly with Coach Sark from here at Pluckers, the West Campus location here in Austin, and presented by the Texas Lottery. We'll wrap it up right after this.
For me, to be a Texas Longhorn means tradition. You're always pushed by the people that have played before, and I felt that push the whole time I was here.
It's going to be a long day, guys.
Yeah, what are those?
Orthopedic shoes, baby.
Yeah, Coach, these are a game changer on game days.
You want to try?
Honey, no. When you look good, you coach good.
The whole squad came to play. It's game day. You ain't with us, get out the way. It's game day. You know we came here for the dub. It's game day. So if you with us, throw it up. It's game day.
Longhorn Weekly with Coach Sark is presented by the Texas Lottery, celebrating 30 years of winning. Play today. And in part by Pluckers Wing Bar. If you don't like our wings, we'll give you the bird.
Handoff to Johnson. Rowe trying to fight off tacklers. Still on his feet is Johnson. Cuts inside. What a move. Roshan Johnson. Touchdown, Texas. He was in jail. He was trapped. He was going to lose yardage, and he turns it into a 21-yard touchdown run. Back here on Longhorn Weekly with head coach Steve Sarkisian here from Pluckers, the West Campus location here in Austin. Got time for another question or two. This one from one of our most loyal fans over here, Jean, who wants to know, I have a feeling there's a reason behind this question. She wants to know what your favorite birthday cake is and icing. Gene, does this have anything to do when he had the making the comparison to the cookies that you baked that you talked about in the news conference on Monday? Because folks pick up on that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, if you're talking about my mom,
Yeah.
first of all, my mom makes a mean carrot cake. Okay. She makes a mean one. But if that would be if I went there and she was making a cake, that's what I'd eat. If I was out and about or somebody were to bring me a cake, I would love a red velvet birthday cake with buttercream ice cream. And what you need to know
The
about
buttercream frosting?
Oh
on
yeah,
it?
that frosting. But what you need to, I have a huge sweet tooth.
Yes.
So it's hard for me to turn down cakes. Like it's difficult. So I'm not too picky. I got to be honest with you.
Well, the reason why I said that because I thought what you were talking about there, the when you made reference to not wanting to overcook things, I guess, with regard to your football team, and you used your grandmother's sugar cookies as an example.
Well, I think a lot of times, especially when you go into a first game, sometimes we can try too hard as coaches, right? We figure out what our players are good at, and then we develop a plan, and you have to be careful not to try too hard. The cookies are good. We don't need any more butter. We don't need extra sugar, right? We don't need to take them out too soon or leave them in a little longer. Just trust what we've done to put in the work to get us to this point, to allow our players to play to the best of our ability. And we've got an experienced coaching staff. We've done it a long time. We've had success for a long time. So we know our formula for success. We mesh that with our players, and now we got to put that product on the field.
It was your grandmother's sugar cookies that brought this to mind?
Yes, it was.
Okay. All right. Hey, I know you're excited about this as a coach, and I know you get the feeling that your team's really excited about this, isn't it?
We are. What I've tried to impress upon the team, there's a lot of hours. There's a lot of blood, sweat, tears that go into this. From a staff, from a player's perspective, a training staff, an equipment staff. There's a lot of people involved that have put a lot of man hours into this for 3.5 hours on a Saturday. And to think we get maybe 14 of them on a year. See, we really try to cherish the moment. We really try to enjoy the experience and appreciate the opportunity that we have. So we're excited. I'm looking forward to DKR rocking at 3:30 on Saturday and make it a great home field advantage for us.
All right, appreciate the time.
All righty, thanks, Greg.
Longhorns head coach Steve Sarkisian. Again, we'll be on the air on the Longhorn Radio Network from Learfield, 2:30 Central Time Saturday afternoon. The kickoff just past 3:30. For Coach Sark and for our crew, I'm Craig Way. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week right here at Pluckers on Longhorn Weekly.